So as we all know, Brandon Ingram broke out this year. Made the All-Star team, 24 points, was the Pelicans' main source of offense for the whole thing until Zion showed up pretty much. And even then, Ingram was still doing his thing. It's not like he fell off or anything. Beating guys off the dribble, hitting pull-up jumpers, isolations. His shooting took a massive jump on his free throws as well as his three-pointer. And he just became a different player, right? And so the question now is, what is Ingram's ceiling? Like, what can we expect from him next season and then moving forward? Now, there's a chance we're still going to get basketball and this year, and perhaps we could see him on some playoff run or in round one or whatever, but we're going to talk about this anyway. So, to me, the first thing that's interesting is that even with Ingram's efficiency being really good and with everything going up, the shot attempts, the usage and everything, you could argue he's still not maximizing his efficiency with where he shoots the ball, because only about 50% of his attempts come from the basket or from three-point range. And I feel like he has potential to do more of that. I mean, this season only 26% of his shots were at the basket, and I feel like he can get there a lot more, because his ball handling and his shiftiness and all that just took some major strides this season. And there were a lot of times when the offense would slow down and Ingram was like, all right, give me the ball, and he would just beat his guy off the dribble and he'd be using some real moves. It wouldn't just be simple straight line drives, although sometimes that's all he has to do because he's a big guy. I mean, he's listed at 6'7". He doesn't look 6'7" when he's out there. Of course, he's got really long arms. He's gotten stronger over time. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to look big like that because, to me, he's like 6'10", 6'11". I don't know where this 6'7" thing's coming from. So it's just difficult to look really built at that height. But I think he's definitely gotten stronger. Defenders bounce off of him. And again, I just think this all can lead to more attempts at the rim and thus more free throws, because he does still take quite a few mid-rangers. And to be fair, he's good at them. He's not amazing at mid-range. I would say overall his percentages were high 30s, low 40s, which is not horrible. Like, it's certainly better than a lot of guys. But again, it's not maximizing Ingram's efficiency unless he becomes Chris Paul from mid-range, which I guess is possible because there were times this year where he looked so smooth pulling up or shooting a turnaround jumper or whatever that maybe he could get there. But to me, the avenue is just more shots at the basket, pretty much. Now, if you want to be cynical, you could say that Zion and Favors as the front court is going to hurt Ingram's chances of finishing inside. For some reason, I don't really agree. Maybe it's because defenses have to respect Zion no matter where he's standing, because you're not going to allow him to get ahead of steam. But for whatever reason, I'm not freaked out about the spacing stopping Ingram from getting inside. I mean, I think it's kind of interesting to point out that even with the jump Ingram took this year, his free throw attempts were basically the same as they were last year and pretty close to his second season as well. I mean, basically 6 attempts a game. And I just think with his size and athleticism and shot creating skills, he can be shooting double-digit free throws, if I'm being honest. I mean, I feel like he really has shown that level of creativity off the dribble and stuff. So that's what I would like to see. Because those couple possessions a game that could have been mid-rangers that are now just going to be him continuing to go to the basket, that can make him even more efficient. I mean, he was at 59% true shooting, but I feel like he can get to 61, 62% or so, which is really when you're starting to get to the elite scorers territory. Now, I think another thing to point out is his relationship with Zion. In terms of just team success, they were totally fine. In the 17 games and 340 minutes that Ingram and Zion played together, the Pelicans were a plus 12. It's, of course, great. And it's just going to be interesting to see the two-man game that they have moving forward. I mean, is Zion going to be setting a lot of screens for Ingram? I think Ingram's passing is another thing to really pay attention to with his growth, because his playmaking got a little better. I've always liked him as a passer. I thought he was underrated there, going back really to his first season, because he would have a bunch of games where he'd get like 5 assists. Like it would happen more than a couple times every few games. So to me, it was just like, oh, there's got to be something there. And I think Ingram has shown that off a little bit. Now, he's never going to be the primary ball handler when he's playing with Drew Holiday and Lonzo, but I don't feel like you can just leave guys wide open to defend Ingram. Now, he's not the most natural playmaker in the sense of like those 2 point guards, but I feel like he's good enough to where if you bring the help, he more often than not will make the right play, assuming he's not facing like a really, really, really good defense in the playoff series. I mean, not many guys can get to that level, and we'll have to see if he can do that. But just looking at some of the plays where Ingram will sometimes go off the dribble, and then he can dump it off to Zion, who's always kind of lingering around 15 feet or so. I just feel like it kind of works. Like I understand why you might think the spacing would be kind of bad there, especially when Zion's playing with Favors, and maybe that could be a thing down the road, but based on what we saw, it just seemed like the Ingram-Zion thing just kind of worked, because you're talking about 2 smart, talented players. Should also be pointed out, Zion's a good passer in his own right, so it actually becomes kind of interesting with this Pelicans team. It's Drew, Lonzo, Ingram, Zion, like 4 guys who are all somewhere between good to great passers. But we're mainly talking about Ingram here, so yeah, I think he could probably get a little better. I don't know if his assist numbers are going to ever go up significantly. I guess it depends on the teammates and how much he has the ball. That's another thing that I think is going to be interesting is, will the Pelicans view Ingram as the go-to guy in all the tough situations? I mean, I think he was that by default to open up the year. But now that this team is actually good, it'll be cool to just see if they view him in that light, or if the Pelicans will look at Zion like that, or I just don't know. I mean, we've seen that type of thing before with like Porzingis and Melo, or the Sixers are constantly having this conversation about fourth quarter offense. Who do you run it through and stuff? It's a big reason why they traded for Jimmy Butler. So we'll see if Ingram can take that on. The last thing to talk about with Ingram is the defense. The funny thing is, even when I was very high on Ingram, for me it was always the defensive potential, and at this point his offense has definitely surpassed his defense. And I think part of that's fine, because they just needed somebody to put some points up, and he did it. But I still feel like his defensive potential is really high for the obvious reasons. I mean, physical profile, the athleticism, and the fact that he just cares on that side of the floor. But now that it seems like he is going to be this go-to scorer, there's a chance that his energy is never put towards defense like you'd really want it to, but offense is more important than defense. So if he's going to be a great offensive player and in a decent and occasional very good defensive one, then that's still better than being okay on offense and really good on defense. I guess we can talk about the shooting a little bit too, because this was the thing that really took off for him. Is there a chance that he regresses a little bit? I don't know. I mean, his form is a lot better, and the Pelicans shooting coaches seem to be pretty legit. I mean, they got Ingram going in the right direction. They also got Lonzo fixing his jump shot in 1 year pretty much. So there's a chance that they're just that good, and Ingram's shooting is going to be awesome the rest of the way. But going from basically a non-shooter from outside to shooting 39% on 6 a game in one season, it's a pretty big jump. And it wouldn't shock me if a guy like that just kind of regressed a little bit, but there's a chance he's just going to ride that momentum out to being an even better three-point shooter. I mean, you never really know with these things. But we do know that Ingram really started to look like the amazing scorer that everybody said he was going to be coming out of college. And it's safe to say that the Pelicans got a pretty good return for AD, given Lonzo's improvement this year and stuff too. Real quick, just to mention it because I think it's kind of funny. The whole Tatum versus Ingram argument that was had a little too much on the internet. Turns out nobody was wrong. They're both awesome. So I don't know what that means, but I feel like it's kind of funny to point out.